Hello and welcome to another edition of the interview program. Today we will be talking about United States-Uzbekistan relations with Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Daniel Rosenblum, who has been the head of the diplomatic mission to Uzbekistan for 3 years by now. Ambassador Rosenblum, in 2019, Uzbekistan adopted laws that guarantee equal rights for women and men and protect women against harassment and violence. We know that the USAID, through its legal reform program, has helped draft the legislation. What do you think was the impetus for these reforms in our country, and can you observe a positive trend in these and other aspects?
Well, thanks for asking about it, because it's a really important issue, gender equality and also the fight against gender-based violence. Important for every country, not just here in Uzbekistan. First of all, I would say that it's probably too soon to say that there's been progress since the law was adopted. It's only been 2 years, and these things take time to change because the laws by themselves won't change. It has to be a societal change. It has to be a change in people's attitudes and their position towards each other. So what I have seen change is there's clearly a very strong, high-level political commitment to addressing gender equality, coming from the president on down, and of course, Senator Narbayeva, who's the head of a commission on this issue, is a leader in it as well. So that is an important change. We also saw in the parliamentary elections in 2019, the number of deputies in the parliament who were women doubled in one election. Now, again, that in itself is not enough, but it's a sign of positive progress, I think. What we need to do together, and I mean the United States and Uzbekistan, is find ways that both of our societies can achieve these goals of having gender equality and eliminating gender-based violence. This coming year, in 2022, our embassy is going to do our small part in this effort. We're going to have a campaign for gender equality through our programs. Some of it will involve sort of high-level technical assistance, where we hope to have an advisor on gender equity that we will provide to the government of Uzbekistan. We're in discussions now about the role that person could play. But we also will be working at kind of the societal level through a few activities. For example, we're hoping to do training for women business owners on leadership and entrepreneurial skills, so that we can increase the share of women working in the economy and playing that entrepreneur role. We're also going to continue something we started last year, which are self-defense courses for young women. We actually have a few alumni of some of our exchange programs who came up with this idea. These are martial arts experts, who teach martial arts, and they came up with the idea, which our embassy is funding, of training girls and young women in self-defense. And we've already seen from the first classes that have gone through that it's a very empowering experience for these young women. They feel much more confident and safe when they're walking on the streets, when they're going about their lives. So we're going to continue and expand that program as well. And we'll be doing some other things. But I guess the most important thing to remember is that this is a process that takes time, and that requires all of society to work together. And I just remember, when I think about how much time it takes for things to change, that it was only 100 years ago in the United States that women got the right to vote. Until then, women could not vote in our country. And when I think about the fact that my grandmother couldn't vote when she was a young woman, because she was born before 1920. So anyway, this is an effort that will only be, where we'll only see progress through, as I said, joint work, and that's why we're happy to be here partnering with the government and the society of Uzbekistan.
Since November 2021, the U.S. Agency for International Development, together with the Ministry of Public Education of Uzbekistan, has been administering the National Earth Grade Assessment in Math and Reading. Do you have any data about the preliminary results of the study?
We don't have data yet because the assessments were actually just completed last week. It's taken much of the fall to complete these assessments. For your viewers who don't know what we're talking about here, I'll just explain that working with the Ministry of Public Education, USAID is helping to assess the reading and math skills of children in, I think it's grades 2 and grades 4. I may have the grades slightly wrong, but it's young children. And the idea behind this is that by understanding what the achievement is and what the gaps are, where they need more help, it will help the ministry to design the curriculum in reading and math and make it better. And that in turn will help these young children do better in school, better in their education, and succeed in life, become more productive citizens. And that's something that will benefit this country for years to come. I think I think everyone would agree that investing in our children is the best investment any society can make. And so we're very happy to be partnering with the Ministry of Education on this.
The United States of America has been supporting Uzbekistan in its fight against the COVID-19 pandemic by allocating more than $16 million to the healthcare system. More than 5.3 million doses of Pfizer and Moderna vaccine have been delivered to Uzbekistan through COVAX facility. Can you tell about the measures that have been taken to ensure the accountability of the vaccine distribution across the Republic?
Well, first of all, the vaccines that have been donated by the United States, as you said, about 5.3 million doses, have been donated through what's called the COVAX facility, which is an international consortium of countries and organizations and pharmaceutical companies providing vaccine doses for COVID free of charge. 5.3 million doses have gone through this mechanism, and here on the ground in Uzbekistan, it's UNICEF, is the international UN organization, UNICEF, that is responsible for the distribution. USAID has supported UNICEF through this process, for example, helping them get the refrigerators that are needed, because as you know, these vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, have to be kept at very cold temperatures, and also helping them work with the government to develop a plan for distribution. The distribution is done on a per capita basis to the regions, in other words, based on population, to all 14 regions of Uzbekistan. And the vaccines are carefully tracked. That is, there's a database where information is entered at every step, so they know how many vaccines have been given to people, how many are in their arms, and are there some left over that should be maybe redistributed to another place before they expire. So that it's very carefully tracked. And then UNICEF and the World Health Organization, WHO, are actually doing monitoring visits where they go out to the regions and check to see how many vaccines have been given, how many are left. So that's how the accountability happens. It happens through this database, which is closely tracked, and through these monitoring visits by UNICEF and WHO.
It has been around 5 months since we met for the previous interview program, and a lot of things have changed, as we all know. Political situation in Afghanistan. What do you think, how it will change the Central Asian region in long term, and what is the U.S. position in this regard?
One of the most significant changes since August, when we last spoke, was the fall of the previous government in Afghanistan and the takeover of the government by the Taliban movement. The decision that was made to withdraw our troops from Afghanistan and the coalition troops was a very difficult one. It was one that President Biden thought a lot about and got a lot of advice, and ultimately made the decision based on his judgment about U.S. national interest and national security. But we all recognize that the impact here in Central Asia is significant and will last for years to come. Since August, since we spoke, Uzbekistan has again proven to be a leader in the region in terms of efforts to maintain stability, to make sure that the countries of the region continue to get along well and have good relationships. And we've appreciated Uzbekistan's role in that regard. A common interest that we have, the United States has with Uzbekistan and the rest of Central Asia, is ensuring that Afghanistan does not again become, as it was 20, 25 years ago. And so we will be continuing to work really closely on counterterrorism and ways of knowing what's happening with terrorist groups and preventing them from acting. We'll continue to be collaborating on that with Uzbekistan for a long time to come. I hate to say a long time to come because we all hope that this problem would eventually disappear, but realistically, we're going to be dealing with it for many years, I'm sure.
The U.S. actively supports Uzbekistan's accession to the WTO organization, as you said, in August 2021. And also you said that in order to do that, Uzbekistan would need approval not from the organization itself only, but from its member countries. What do you think are the prospects of Uzbekistan's accession to the World Trade Organization? And could you tell us about the processes Uzbekistan has to go through if this were to happen?
You know, first of all, I would say the prospects are good. You asked what the prospects are. The prospects are good, even very good, for Uzbekistan to become a member of the WTO. And the reason is, first of all, there's high-level political will and political commitment from the government here to join WTO and do what's necessary. And that really needs to be sustained, in part because the changes that need to be made in laws and trade practices to become a WTO member require an effort of the whole of the government. You know, it's all the ministries, all the elements of the government. So you need that top-level commitment and strong commitment, which I believe is there. The other reason why I think the prospects are good is because Uzbekistan's partners around the world, its trading partners, want Uzbekistan to come in. Because as you pointed out, it's not enough for the organization of WTO to agree. It has to be all the member countries that agree, and some of whom have to negotiate bilaterally with Uzbekistan on the terms of their membership. So it's a complicated process and a lengthy process, but there has been some progress, and I expect it to continue. The next stage, you were asking about the stage that we're at, is there's something called a working party meeting that will happen in Geneva, the headquarters of the WTO, where Uzbekistan will sit down with WTO itself and its important member countries and answer questions. There's a lot of questions that have been asked about this country's policies, laws, or plans to change those policies and laws. And Uzbekistan will have a chance to respond to those questions, to give explanations and strategies and to make the necessary changes. So that will then be followed by more of these working party meetings, more questions, more answers. It is a lengthy process, but again, I'm optimistic that before too long, Uzbekistan will become a member of the WTO.
As we all know, the government of Uzbekistan plans to accelerate the privatization process and to reduce the number of state-owned enterprises threefold. How would this affect the external trade performance of Uzbekistan, as well as the foreign trade turnover between Uzbekistan and the United States of America?
You know, privatization is, I know, one of the priorities of the government and of President Mirziyoyev's reform program. There has been progress made in the privatization that I've seen myself. One of the more notable examples this past year was Coca-Cola Bottling Company, which went through a sell-off of its state-owned shares to private companies, and a subsidiary of Coca-Cola based in Turkey won the bidding for that privatization and will operate Coca-Cola bottling here in Uzbekistan. And that Coca-Cola is a good example of the potential that privatization will have on the operation of a company, because my understanding is that the Coca-Cola Turkey that is now the owner plans to expand production, to diversify production, to meet demands in the local market. And you could envision in the future that if they're successful at being efficient and producing better and more diverse products, that some of those will then be exported from Uzbekistan to other countries, and that creates jobs here, that it benefits the citizens of Uzbekistan. And I can see that happening across the economy the more privatization takes hold, including in trade with the United States. I think that the basic principle here, which I can see that the government of Uzbekistan understands, is that state-owned enterprises are usually, just to make a generalization, usually do not operate as efficiently and are not as flexible and good at responding to the market and meeting market demand. And that's why having a larger share of private ownership in the economy will benefit consumers, it will benefit workers here in Uzbekistan, because it will make for more efficient and more market-driven companies that are responding to market demand. So anyway, it's a win-win situation, I think, and I hope we see progress in 2022, further progress on the privatization here in Uzbekistan. In addition, the potential for joint ventures between American companies and Uzbek companies will increase. I've actually seen myself from U.S. firms who we work with here in this market that they prefer and they have better experience working with private companies, private Uzbek companies, as opposed to state-owned enterprises. It's not that there haven't been some successes in working with state-owned enterprises, but on the whole, the experience is much better for these private U.S. firms working with private Uzbek firms. So we'll have more joint ventures, we'll have more back and forth of products between companies, and higher trade turnover, more jobs in the United States, more jobs in Uzbekistan. It's a good win-win, as I said.
Uzbekistan is now introducing digitalization in tax affairs. Could you please tell anything about comparative analysis of how this works in Uzbekistan and United States of America? What suggestions could you give in this regard?
You know, first of all, I'm not an expert on tax administration, so I may not be able to get into the technical details. But I will tell you that in our country, digitization or electronic means of filing taxes has been around for a long time, and on the whole, it's been a huge success. It's a good thing. Obviously, it makes things more easier for the taxpayer in a way, once they master how to use the software and the program. But it also puts a distance between the tax collectors and the taxpayers. There isn't that same direct contact, which unfortunately in too many countries around the world it can lead to corruption, it can lead to harassment of the taxpayers by the tax service. If you take that personal element out of it and you make it electronic, it increases transparency and it increases accountability on both sides, again, from the tax collectors and the taxpayers. So I know that the business community in Uzbekistan, who I talk to often, were very pleased that Uzbekistan adopted electronic filing in 2018, I think is when it started. I know that the system is still being improved gradually, but that was a big advancement for the business climate here in Uzbekistan. And I know that our Treasury Department, which already has several advisors here providing technical assistance to the Finance Ministry, plans to put another advisor here in the near future who will work with the State Tax Service exactly on these kinds of issues. How can you make the electronic filing work better? How can you conduct audits, tax audits, in a way that catches people who are cheating or not paying, but doesn't lead to harassment or a lot of interference in people's lives? So that technical assistance that we plan to provide through our Treasury Department should advance this even further, advance the reform of your tax system even further.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Rosenblum. On behalf of Uzreport TV team, I would like to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yangi yılınız mübarek bolsun. Uzbekistan halkiga, tinchlik, faravonlik, va salamotlik, va baxt saudat dilayman.
Oh, rahmat katakan. Thank you very much.